Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson at 3, and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with my pal Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. The KBC app, as well as the on-demand podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms, and, of course, on the socials, too. Record-shattering week for stocks and for Bitcoin. Stocks pulling back from record highs today, but Bitcoin shot to a new record high above 118,000. Yep, you heard me. I'll discuss the latest moves in crypto this week in detail later this hour with Jason Nelson at Decrypt Media. This week also marked the 6-month anniversary of the devastating firestorms which ravaged Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. I'll discuss what's happening in the recovery with Bank of America Business Banking President Raul Anaya, who is leading B of A's recovery efforts here in the Los Angeles area. He'll be joining us live later this hour as well. Today we saw stocks and government bonds selling off in tandem. On the latest news on trade, stocks pulling back after President Trump threatened Canada with a 35% tariff on its imports and floated higher blanket tariffs on most trading partners. The Dow came in for a closing loss of 279 points today. The S&P 500 down 21 from its all-time high, and the Nasdaq slipping 45 points, also off its all-time high. The yield in the 10-year note is back up to 4.41%. The Magnificent One, NVIDIA, continues to amaze, hitting an all-time high and became the first company to hit $4 trillion market cap value. Markets once again taking in the latest tariff news. That included President Trump on his social media platform posting a letter to the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney telling him that Canadian goods imported to America would face a 35% tariff starting in August. The White House has since clarified that many of the exceptions currently in place for Canadian tariffs would remain, likely exempting some of the goods from those duties. Following that development very, very closely, we're also following the comments from a prominent banker, CEO, J.P. Morgan Chase, CEO Jamie Dimon, said, unfortunately, he said in his words, there's complacency in the markets. Jamie Dimon also panning the New York City mayoral candidate, the leading candidate there, Zoran Mondani, and in Jamie Dimon's words, as more a Marxist than a socialist, and criticized Democrats, who he says spend too much time on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. It was Zoran Mondani who recently said, I don't think we should have billionaires. Watching what's happening in the Middle East as well. It was an epic week with President Trump meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for 2 days at the White House. We're watching the latest developments in an efforts to get a ceasefire going between Hamas and Israel, and that war which continues following the Hamas terror attack on Israel back on October 7th, 2023. Following all these developments closely and more, honored to say we have with us now the one and only Steve Forbes, chairman of Forbes Media, which includes Forbes magazine, former Republican presidential candidate, author of numerous books, including Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. Steve Forbes, thank you very much for coming to the line to wrap up another epic week with us here.
Well, good to be with you, and what a week it has been.
Yeah, one huge development after another on an hour-by-hour basis. We're talking here on a week where the stock market has hit record highs following the signing, just about a week ago, of the big, beautiful bill by the president on the 4th of July. Give us your reaction to what's happened just in the last week.
Well, I think the highlight was what happened on the 4th of July. Getting that bill through Congress was a huge achievement, as the president would put it, and gives people certainty now in what the rules of the road are going to be on taxes. But one of the things that is two big uncertainties remain out there domestically. One, of course, is what's going to happen on tariffs, which changes each day. The markets would have been much, much lower. They would have taken a huge hit if they thought these tariffs were actually going to go into effect. They see it as the president putting out a big demand, and then they'll negotiate it. In terms of Canada, it was good that he acknowledged that he's going to stick to the agreement he negotiated with Canada and Mexico on items covered by the trade agreement between the three countries. And I think the markets are anticipating that these things will be negotiated down before the August 1st deadline. So that's a big one. But another big one out there is what's happening, Frank, with the Federal Reserve. That battle is heating up as the president is now, his people are now going after the Fed, rightly so, I think, for the huge cost overruns on the renovations. They're talking about Versailles and the Potomac, originally estimated to be $1.8 billion. Now it's $2.5 billion. So they're going to hammer Powell with that. But the big thing with the Federal Reserve is not just the particular interest rates, but their whole operating model, the whole philosophy guiding the Fed, which believes that prosperity causes inflation. Just to end on that, it's ridiculous that we have 3-month and 6-month and 30-day Treasury bills yielding around 4.2, 4.3, 4.4% is way too high. It should be half that. And then two, the Fed is still paying huge interest rates, 4.4% on bank reserves, which hurts lending. So big battles are going to come with the Fed. The focus is on tariffs, but the Fed thing is going to heat up more than it's going to cool down.
Is Fed Chairman Jerome Powell going to get his new marble or the new dining room table that they've been talking about?
Well, special elevators for the VIPs at the Federal Reserve, gardens on the top of the building. I love gardening, but Federal Reserve building shouldn't be a greenhouse. No, the whole thing just shows what happens when an organization becomes self-contained inside a bubble and assumes, without them even realizing it, a colossal arrogance at the expense of the American taxpayer and the American economy. The Federal Reserve has made a hash of things in recent years, and it's good that I think that Powell and company are being called to account for it. But politically, the media, unfortunately, most of the mainstream media is going to say, oh, this is an assault against the integrity and independence of the Federal Reserve. No, it's going to be an examination of the whole way the Fed operates, which has been doing more harm than good.
See it tonight, read about it tomorrow, but hear it now on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC Live with the one and only Steve Forbes. Zeroing in on the Fed for a moment, it appears that Fed Chairman Powell's last year is in progress here. Who do you think will succeed Chairman Powell? And there's a lot of talk now about maybe a shadow Fed. The president might tap somebody here to start before Fed Chairman Powell's term officially ends.
Well, I think the problem there is that anyone he designates is going to be under attack by the mainstream media. So one of the things, though, that he is going to have an opportunity on in coming months is that there's a seat on the Federal Reserve Board. A governor, her name is Kugler, but her term ends at year end, which means later this summer, early fall, he can announce an appointment for that seat. And that would could be somebody who would take the place of Powell, or just a new governor that's going to ask questions that the Federal Reserve doesn't want to have to answer. So I think they're going to use, though, this Versailles on the Potomac $700 million overrun to go after and try to bring Powell to his senses. But Powell, unfortunately, Jerome Powell, unfortunately, just does what his staff tells him to do, and they have the wrong way of looking at the world.
On the Air Live with Steve Forbes, his latest book, Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. We're seeing a spike in the price of gold today, up more than $40, nearly $45 higher to $3,370 and change. Bitcoin hitting a record high above $118,000. Give us your reaction to this just at a time when we're told inflation has been cooling off.
Well, inflation's been cooling off from the mistakes that were made during COVID, both by the government, what they did, and by the Federal Reserve. But what you're seeing now is something that's very ominous for the future, and the Fed doesn't know what to do about it, even if they've, I think, fully grasped it yet, and that is the weakening of the dollar. When the gold price goes up, that means the value of the dollar is under assault, the value of the dollar is going down. You look at the exchange rate markets, it's going down against the euro, the yen, even the British pound, country that's got deep troubles. That tells you that that people are losing faith in the currency. And that's why it's important, one, to get this tariff business out of the way, but number two, to get policies in place with the Federal Reserve that recognizes their task should only be they should not try to manipulate the course of the economy, stimulating it or depressing it, according to their models. It should be a stable value for the dollar. And if that happens in the next few months, you'll start to see markets really turn around, get the tariff questions out of the way, just like we've got the big bill, getting the tax questions out of the way for now. We got to get the Federal Reserve fixed up and the tariffs fixed up, and then you'd see a very good sustained economy. The stocks have done fairly decently this year, but compared to most of the markets around the world, we're lagging. Even Europe has done better than our stocks.
On the air live with Steve Forbes, and now that the big beautiful bill has been signed into law, that lifts one of the biggest uncertainties that was hanging out there, and now tariffs. We got this August 1st deadline. Brazil was in focus here. Looks like they may be hit with a 50% tariff, and it should be noted Peter Navarro, one of the president's top trade advisors, who we used to have on this show quite a bit when he was a UC Irvine professor, also wrote the book, If It's Raining in Brazil, by Starbucks. So Brazil suddenly back in focus here. People nervous about how much coffee prices might increase. Have you taken a look at that and what might come out of that?
Well, again, I think that the president threatening a 50% tariff because he doesn't like how the opposition leader and former president of Brazil is being treated is not something that's going to be sustainable. And I think, again, the markets overall, yes, some of it's been roiling, but I think that's going to be resolved fairly soon. There's no way you're going to have a 50% tariff because of the president's concern about former President Bolsonaro in Brazil. And but again, that's the kind of uncertainty that's out there. And then, of course, we can't ignore, but who knows how it's going to play out, is the aftermath of Iran. There's still much work to be done there. And also, is the president going to follow through and provide armaments for Ukraine where they can push back on the Russians' new offensive? Unfortunately, Vladimir Putin is one of those people who only respects power. And if he realizes, Putin, that we're not abandoning Ukraine, that he's not going to conquer Ukraine, that is the only way you're going to get him to the negotiating table, willing to negotiate a real peace and not a virtual takeover of Ukraine.
On there live with Steve Forbes, and certainly the Middle East in focus, again in Washington with the big meetings between President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Give us your reaction to those big meetings and where we stand here now with the ceasefire apparently holding between Israel and Iran, and an effort now to push a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel.
Well, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu has decided that he is willing to do something he did not want to do a few months ago, and that is have a not long-term, but a ceasefire, 60-day ceasefire with Hamas while he focuses on Iran. As somebody pointed out, he's sacrificing, if you play chess, he's sacrificing his queen to get the king, which is Iran. And I think what they're discussing this week, why the Prime Minister came over, is they were discussing quietly behind the scenes what remains to be done vis-a-vis Iran, so that it never again, at least in our near future, has any real ability to create a new bomb. And so I think that was the focus, what to do about Iran. And Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, is quite willing to have a ceasefire with regards to Hamas in Gaza, if he can focus and truly get rid of the threat, any future threat from Iran.
What about the current Iranian leadership? Are they going to be around much longer? And what do you see ahead on that front?
Well, it's very telling that the police suppression of the police forces there have been working overtime, arresting people, and because the regime knows that, one, it's very unpopular, and two, that's why they want to suppress any kind of dissent. When President Obama took office back in 2009, there was a very serious popular uprising. We did nothing to help it. We made it very clear, unfortunately, the new president, that he was not sympathetic towards the rebels, and it was crushed. And there was an uprising a few years ago. Same thing. So I think the Iranian people, at some point, as they recover from the numbness of what's happened, you could see a regime change there. We don't have to do it. We don't have to send in anybody. I think the Iranian people will do it themselves. Young people, especially in Iran, hate this regime. They see no future, and they want it gone.
On there live with Steve Forbes. Speaking of regime change, I know you're focused on what's happening in New York, along with the Yankees, what's happening with the mayoral race there, and it appears the leading candidate, Zoran Mandami, drawing flack today from the head of the nation's largest bank, J.P. Morgan Chase. This is the guy, Mandami, who said, "I don't think we should have billionaires." He doesn't want a Forbes billionaires list. Can you imagine that? What's your reaction to what's happening there in the Big Apple?
Well, he's the Democratic mayoral candidate, Mamdani, is absolutely unqualified to be mayor of New York. Somebody like him has become, a couple of years ago, mayor of Chicago, who's running that city into the ground. Chicago is careening towards of actual bankruptcy, which happened to Detroit years ago. His popularity is almost down to zero. And people loved the fact that Mandami was saying, oh, you can have free buses, free health care, free this, free that. But there's not the money there to do it. And you've already had an exodus of capital from New York. And if he does get elected, he can do very real harm. And that's what people don't want. They love New York City. They don't want to see it to suffer massive damage. And hopefully the voters will wake up to it and see through this very dangerous figure. And the question is, who will be the beneficiary? There are two credible names still on the ballot. Amazingly, Andrew Cuomo is still on the ballot on an independent line. New York is one of those places where you can put your name on the ballot 2 or 3 times. So he's going to be on November as an independent. And, of course, the incumbent who is running as an independent, Eric Adams. I think most people are now coalescing around Adams. But Cuomo so far has given no indication that he's going to give up. Cuomo thought he was going to win the race easily, so he ran a terrible campaign, and he thought being mayor of New York would put him in a position to run for president in 2028. Amazingly, so his ambitions are dying hard. But I think people will coalesce around Adams, and he could win in November as people realize how dangerous this guy Mamdani is.
From our vantage, it's a little confusing here for those of us here in California. So the election is in November, and is there a back and forth between now and then? So all of these candidates are on the ballot, and it appears this guy Mandami is the leading candidate.
Plus, New York has like California ranked choice, which is ridiculous. But so the primary was usually if you win the Democrat primary in New York, you won the election. The general election's a formality. But in this case, given how radical Mamdani is, people are looking for an alternative. The Republican candidates gained no ground at all, so people are wondering if he'll withdraw. So it's really now, but amazingly, under New York law, Cuomo is on the ballot still. Adams is on the ballot as an independent. He decided not to run in the Democrat primary. And so who's going to be the main candidate against Mamdani in November? I think it's going to be Eric Adams, and I think people like the head of Jamie Dimon at J.P. Morgan Chase. Of course, he's a big banker, but there are thousands of small business people and professionals who are starting to rally. They don't want to have happen to New York what's happening in Chicago.
At the top, last time I looked at the Forbes billionaires list, Elon Musk, who made news this week, creating a new political party as the president and Elon Musk continue to lock horns. Before we let you off the hook here, give us your reaction to that big news here.
Well, he won't create a party that's going to win elections, but he can create a party that affects elections. Putting a couple of billion out there, he can siphon off enough votes with candidates he backs to affect elections. I think the effort is more one of frustration, and I hope that he just focuses himself on SpaceX and X and his other companies. Tesla needs work right now, so I think that'll be a passing thing because there's no way he's going to replace one of the two major parties.
Another important story before we let you off the hook here, the immigration law enforcement continuing now hitting some of the farm areas here in California this week, and some discussions here now about how to deal with the farmer issue. What's your reaction to what's happened this week?
Well, I think this shows the confusion of the administration on the whole immigration thing. Shame on the Biden administration for opening the border and letting in 10 million people. Most of them, I think, came here to try to pursue an honest living, but you did have a lot of bad elements, and some sleeper cells definitely have come in. So that that was an unnecessary tragedy. But in terms of dealing with the FDA, I think you have to divide it really in two parts. Those who came here illegally before the Biden administration took office, people who've been here 10, 20 years, and even those who came over the border in the last 4 years. I think you're going to have to, and the president's hinted at this in the past, but then as part of his administration doesn't follow through, is you're going to have to make accommodations for construction, for hospitality, for agriculture, to have a system in place where people can come in, work, we know who they are, and have work programs, because otherwise the economy is going to take an unnecessary hit. And then hopefully at some point, when temperatures cool off a little bit politically, we can sit down and come up with a sensible immigration system where we meet the labor needs, where we know who's coming in, where we don't have this huge illegal population that lives in the shadows and leads to all sorts of things we don't want. So hopefully Washington can rise to the occasion. I know that sounds utterly optimistic and Pollyannish, but this is a problem, and this is, I think, what's happening now with agricultural workers. We need them, and we better make accommodations for them, and we've got to do it for the rest of the economy, because this situation is intolerable where people don't know what the rules of the game are. And this would not mean that people who came here illegally would be able to vote. But you have to have a system in where those who have been obeying the law have an opportunity to stay, but they won't be allowed to vote.
One epic week after another these days, and we're so grateful to have you with us here. Steve Forbes, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media, author of numerous books, his latest, Inflation, What It Is, Why It Is Bad, and How to Fix It. Mr. Forbes, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Good to be with you, and have a good weekend. Thank you, Frank.
You too. Thank you very much. Look forward to speaking with you again very, very soon. And right after the freeways we go now on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. A pullback from record highs today. The NASDAQ down 45 off its all-time high. The S&P 500 down 21, also backing off its record high. The Dow tumbling 279 at 44,371. And what's been an epic record-shattering week for the stock market. Bitcoin hitting an all-time high above 118,000. We'll talk more about that coming up in the next half hour. Gold also getting a pop today, up nearly $45, back to $3,370 and change. Oil moving higher, more than $2 at $68.75. And now the latest news on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. 2025 has been marked by tragedy and disaster in many places. This week also marked the 6-month anniversary of the devastating firestorms which ravaged Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. Bank of America made news this week, announcing an additional $1 million to Los Angeles area nonprofits involved in the firestorm recovery efforts, adding to B of A's multi-million-dollar commitment to help. And joining us live now is Bank of America Business Banking President Raul Anaya, who is leading B of A's recovery efforts here in the Los Angeles area. Raul Anaya, thank you very much for taking the call live with us here this afternoon.
Of course, Frank. It's great to be with you.
Wonderful to have you with us here, and thank you for your leadership at this critical time. Give us an update on the firestorm recovery efforts up to this point, and tell us about the big announcements you've made this week.
Well, thank you, Frank. You know, it's been the 6-month anniversary, and for many of our clients and employees, it continues to be a very emotional period for them because they're still having to focus on their rebuild efforts and how they're thinking about what they want to do for the future. But I know at Bank of America we've been fairly busy with the rebuild effort. Of the approximately 13,000 homes and businesses that were destroyed by the fires in the communities that you mentioned, about half of them are Bank of America clients in some way. And so we've been very, very diligent over the last 6 months, working very, very closely with our clients with our employees and with the community at large, and help in assisting them as they think about what's next for them.
And it's certainly significant, your announcement regarding additional funds for nonprofits providing resources here in this disaster. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we're very, very pleased. When the fires initially broke out, within weeks, we announced $2 million in philanthropic support to help with the immediate needs of the community, and that's the funds that we provided to the LA Regional Food Bank, funds that we provided to the American Red Cross, and then also to the LA Area Chamber of Commerce to help with the establishment of their inaugural Small Business Disaster Recovery Fund. So very, very pleased with that commitment. And then here most recently this week, we announced another round of $1 million plus of grants to also support the rebuild effort. And much of the funding that we provided was to additional organizations focused on small business, because as you know, small business is the lifeblood of any local community, particularly here in Los Angeles, where I think of LA as just a community of entrepreneurs. So it's very, very important that we help restart the small business ecosystem.
On there live with Raul Anaya, who's the president of business banking for Bank of America here in Los Angeles and leading the firestorm recovery efforts. Tell us about some of the big issues that you're dealing with here, talking to all these business people, small business people, and residents who've been impacted, certainly underinsured properties, mortgage issues, all being discussed here now. What are some of the front line issues that people are talking about?
Yeah, Frank, when I took on this expanded role back in February, when Brian Moynihan, our CEO, asked me to take on the comprehensive view for Bank of America on the rebuild of LA, we immediately put together a team of about 25 senior level executives across the bank and focused on clients, employees, and communities. We initially focused on providing a dedicated team for just the clients that were impacted, the hundreds of clients that lost their homes. We immediately gave them a point person. We also were successful in excavating 2 sites where we had a total of 2,500 safe deposit boxes. And if you think about what our customers have in those safe deposit boxes, it's their most valuable possessions. We had a team of nearly 100 people very, very quickly as possible, move those safe deposit boxes to a safer location for our clients to recover. And so I know many of our clients were very, very pleased to be able to have access to their most valuable possessions. That was in the early beginning of the recovery. Now we have pivoted, and we're now focused on, the hundreds of clients that lost their homes. Many of them are still contemplating whether they want to rebuild or they don't want to rebuild. Those that do want to rebuild, we are innovating in our product set to provide them with a construction loan product. We already have a construction loan product today, but we're going to adapt it to address the unique, the nuances that are presented with the LA fires. And so that's something that we will be rolling out here very, very soon. And then the other thing is, providing our customers with additional repayment flexibility for those that do want to rebuild. So all of that's in the work. We're very, very proud of the work that we are focused on, and we'll be coming back to you, Frank, here in the coming weeks, sharing more details on that. But we will provide an innovative product for our customers, and actually all Angelenos, to the extent they want to rebuild, we'll have a product for them to be able to do so, as well as provide some additional flexible repayment terms as they think about rebuilding their home.
Well, Godspeed in all of your important work leading this monumental, unprecedented effort here in the Los Angeles area. Raul Anaya, the president of Bank of America Business Banking here, leading B of A's recovery efforts here in the Los Angeles area. We thank you very much for that important update on the week that has marked the 6-month anniversary of the horrific firestorms which ravaged the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. We'll keep an open line to you on any important updates. Raul Anaya, what's the best way for people to connect with you and the resources that you've just described?
Well, Frank, my email is in the public domain. anybody can email me, and happy to put my team and I to work with anybody that's looking to help think through the nuances of the rebuild. And today we're already working with all of the different philanthropic groups. We're working with the business community. We're working with the mayor, the governor's office to kind of help bring all the different parties and all the different stakeholders of the community to work together. Because ultimately it's going to take a public-private partnership to build Los Angeles in a safe, sustainable manner for the next several generations.
Wonderful, and look forward to seeing you at upcoming business events, including the big LA Area Chamber of Commerce events with Maria Salinas coming up. Roland and I thank you again very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. Out to the freeways we go now, 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now the U.S. debt at more than $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets, like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement and the markets and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and yes, silver. Give my friends at United Gold Group a call. The number is 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek, and you get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534. Again, that's 800-753-8534, or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Record-shattering week for stocks and for Bitcoin. Stocks did pull back from record highs today, but Bitcoin continued on a roll, hitting an all-time high above $118,000. Yep, you heard me. Above 118. Right now it's about 117,439 here at last check. Let's bring in Jason Nelson now, following all of this at Decrypt Media at decrypt.co. Jason Nelson, thank you very much for joining us live on this big news here today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, your reaction to Bitcoin blowing past its previous record high, which was about 112, and now we're looking at around 118 here.
Well, I mean, Bitcoin has hit several all-time highs in a relatively short amount of time. But it's the whole market is going up right now. For example, Ethereum reclaimed $3,000 today. Solana hit 160. So the entire crypto market is just going parabolic right now.
And along for the ride, Coinbase, the crypto platform strategy, formerly MicroStrategy, other Bitcoin and crypto stocks have also soared in this record-shattering week. Tell us about that.
Right, and it's like anything that is in the orbit of Bitcoin right now is seeing gains. The only people who may not be too happy right now are short sellers who are betting against Bitcoin. But as far as the market in general is concerned, it's just euphoria right now.
What about Ethereum? You mentioned that's quite a comeback. It was a real dog this year, and then has roared back to life, still off its all-time high. What about Ethereum? Take a closer look at that one.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say what is causing all of these different cryptocurrencies to hit. Right now, we're waiting to see what this so-called crypto week in Washington brings. And so what you have is a lot of people are just loading up on their favorite cryptocurrency to see which one does what next week as these bills start getting reviewed by Congress and hopefully passed for better legislation in the United States.
Yeah, we're going to put out a request in early to get you back on Crypto Week, right? That's what they're calling it, with crypto legislation in the spotlight. What do you see developing in the week ahead?
Well, you have three bills that are going to be looked at. We have the anti-stablecoin, the digital dollar bill that's being reviewed. They're still looking at the Genius Act, which would be for stablecoin legislation, and then you also have the Clarity Act, which you're bringing all of these different bills together. That's going to lay the groundwork for the future of crypto in the United States. And it's just making the market, is just pumping the entire market.
On the air live with Jason Nelson at decrypt.co. Let me ask you this. What are the prospects for these various acts, this various legislation to pass? What do you see developing in the week ahead?
Well, the Genius Act already passed through the Senate. So they're pretty confident what we've been hearing that is going to pass in the House as well. The anti-digital dollar bill has been around for a little bit, but it's been consistently looked down on by lawmakers, especially on the Republican side, who have criticized it as like a tool of surveillance and control. So more than likely, that's going to pass. The other ones, like the Stablecoin Act, that looks likely to pass just because there's a lot of stablecoin talk going on right now. You also have a lot of new stablecoin companies coming out right now who are trying to, put themselves in the position for when it does pass, so they'll be the best and in position to take advantage of it.
All right, so it looks like the political lines have been drawn in all this. Southern California Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who formerly chaired the House Financial Services Committee, now serving as a ranking member on that committee, has blasted some of these bills here coming up, saying, in her words, these bills would make Congress complicit in the president's unprecedented crypto scam. Tell us about the opposition to what's happening here, with obviously very pro-crypto administration in place, and the other side fighting it tooth and nail.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because at least on the surface, the Republicans seem to be more unified in their getting it passed, and the Democrats are largely unified, but not as much as the Republicans, because you do have some Democratic leaders who do see the value in digital assets and cryptocurrency and who want to see how it could benefit their constituents. So it's not the anti-crypto is not as united as it used to be.
Jason, thank you very much for joining us live here with that important update and a preview of what's ahead. It's going to be a big week in the crypto world. They're calling it Crypto Week, and I hope to speak with you again next week. That is Jason Nelson, reporter at Decrypt Media at decrypt.co. Does a great job following the crypto space and joining us here. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a look at some of these prices here now. Bitcoin did pop above 118,000 today. Ethereum did reclaim 3,000 as a BlackRock spot Ethereum ETF notches 300 million. Let's see if we can find the latest here on the Ethereum price before we go here. Ethereum right now just below 3,000. Bitcoin making headlines this week with record highs being shattered pretty much every day this week. And it looks like Bitcoin is at 117,392 here at the moment. Stay tuned now to the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. I'll be back with more at 4 on Monday afternoon right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
Vince Colonnese is redefining news talk.
Hi, I'm Vince Colonnese, host of the Vince Podcast. These conversations where we can air all of this out without the filters, without the censors, without people with judgment, that's how you get a healthy country. Adult, reasonable, sober conversations. That's all I want.
In-depth interviews, live caller interactions, and a front row seat to the most important conversations of the day.
That's why I'm so grateful that we get to do this every day. You are really the best damn audience in media.
The Vince Show.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.